This episode of the Better Every Shift podcast is sponsored by TheFireStore. Learn more about getting the gear you need at prices you can afford by visiting TheFireStore.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Better Every Shift podcast. My name is Aaron Zamza. I'll be your host. This is a very special episode that we have. Every year, we like to do some kind of a product showcase of things that we might be seeing at FDIC and kind of what's big in the market. And we usually have some great reps from FireStore. By the way, thank you to the FireStore for all their support of the Better Every Shift podcast. And this year, we thought one of the biggest and hottest items is thermal imaging cameras. They're now getting to a point where the technology is really expanding. There are a lot of different things to know about. And so we decided to talk about, one of the products that they showcase on the FireStore is what some of the Seek thermal imaging cameras. So we want to thank the FireStore and Seek. And, when we talked about thermal imagers, the one person that came to mind was my good friend, Andy Starnes, who is the go-to, the man who has been doing this in the fire service for as long as I have. So with me today is Chief Andy Starnes. Welcome, brother. How are you?
Thank you. And by the way, I'm not chief of nothing anymore. I retired, so my new rank is probationary firefighter and yes, ma'am, to my wife, whatever. But
you're not even chief of your own house,
no,
right?
I'll never have that. She's chief, So yeah, I think it's a joy to start over and start relearning. So we're doing great. I appreciate the opportunity. It's a wonderful, wonderful ride called life. And if you are in the fire service and you kind of get in the sticky point, just hang on and realize that you snap your fingers, your career will be over before you know it. You want to spend more time enjoying it than focusing on the negative. So spend time enjoying it because I'm living proof. Snap your fingers, it's over. And you'll look back and when the fire truck goes by with light and siren, you go, that was fun. Which I can, I'm more. So yeah, we all have seasons. And my season now is a little different. Just keep your head up and keep pushing forward, as you say, be better every day.
Yeah, get a little bit better, get a little more knowledgeable. And there are so many things that you and I have talked over the years just about how, we're kind of OGs. I think the first TIC that you started probably learning on was half the size of your body, like the old cell phones, right? And now they're so compact. Seek's got a personal one that we actually just bought at our department. But let's go back to 101 thermal imaging, and even before that, you've been the go-to. How did that come about? First of all, I just wanted to give a little bit about your background because you and I started seeing each other at shows, I think in 2012 and just having some great conversations. What's your journey been through this and how have you kind of a self-made man with it, right?
No, there's no such thing as a self-made man. That's a lie. You're reading too many books that tell you lies. No, truthfully, we're all products of other people's investments, and some people have it harder than others. I was blessed to have a lot of mentors and people invest in me along the way. You can take this for what you will, but I'm thankful that as a kid, I was bullied and I was not popular because that caused me to go hang out at the fire station with my dad because I was not athletic. I was kind of the nerd, couldn't hold an 1.75 inch hose without whipping me around, forced me to work out, forced me to hang around people who were investing in me for the right reasons and pick it on me in a good way, and instead of a negative, detrimental way, which got the itch started when I was a kid, because through my father, that's how I got it. And then I became a junior firefighter at 16, fought my first fire right after that, was definitely hooked, even though I made a bazillion mistakes. And then got hired career at 22, or at 23rd birthday, did almost 26 years with Charlotte Fire Department. If you count all the end of the bonus time of the year. And in that time frame, my dad started at something called Project Ken Flasher.
Yep.
And it was a way for me to hang out with my dad. He was Sean Oak, who the originators of that. They're the OGs. And a lot of good people in there. Warren Whitley and Ken Maston and Jason Coy, a bunch of great people. I saw met Alan Demasini and all these wonderful people. That they are the ones that invested in me and countless other people. And my dad's project had three things they focused on: enhanced water, tactical air management, and thermal imaging. Well, they didn't have anybody doing thermal imaging, so I literally just kind of popped into that spot, started learning, got taught by a guy who used to be part owner of ISG by the name of Bobby Kyle. And then I was doing all this for free, hanging out with Dad, and it took 115. I fell through the floor when I was prepping the house for a research firm he would do. We jokingly call ourselves the redneck version of UL. We take the wired structures, fill it full of furniture, put thermal couples in it, film it. He just didn't have the funding that UL obviously has.
Yeah.
And we would do all that data, and we'd involve people. But I was prepping that house, and I fell through the floor and ripped my skeleton in half in my left knee. And I went from running my third marathon to my wife carrying me to the bathroom for 8 weeks and learning how to walk. And that changed everything, because I was not going to come back here. And by the grace of God, I did. She informed me that, you're going to keep doing this. We need to make sure that, if you get hurt, a family's taken care of, because you can't live without you can't live on disability. So out of that, I founded Inside Fire Training. And that's when I learned that I don't know anything. I've been hanging out with these people, learning from international people, and I knew this much. Everyone else who works in this field outside of the fire service goes to school. So I started getting certifications in it, which led down a rabbit hole of things that ended up allowing us to develop the first collegiate-based firefighting certification in the world for thermal imaging you can do online. So that's all based on that journey. So I've not been the go-to. I went to hang out with Dad, fell into it. My wife said, go do this. And now I sit here with you with an internationally recognized company, a curriculum. We built 4 different cameras. We test fire service products. I have 11 main instructors and several adjuncts training. We go internationally. I've been in Germany and Poland next week. We are beyond blessed. So if you've been through something bad and you wonder why, stop asking me why and say, what is this going to be used for? Because when I was in my little pity party and out of work for 7 months with my knee injury, I could have never envisioned that I'd be sitting here to you, talking to you now, and running a company that manufacturers come to us to tell us how to use and test their product. So that's where we're at because of something negative that happened. It led to an extremely positive end result. Yeah,
and the fire service is benefiting from that as well. I mean, because you're passing that on and playing it forward. And so a lot of this was, like you saw an opportunity because of an injury, and you just started focusing on, holy cow, the more I learn, the more I don't know. Let's talk about TICs and what we don't know, or what, you've traveled all over the world. Let's start with the basics. What should every firefighter know about this tool that we're using, or that we have at our disposal now?
I don't think we have that much time, but if we were going to do the fatals, I would tell you the first thing they need to know is that it is not a thermometer, and it doesn't do everything that they were taught it does. And the things it does do, they probably don't know. For example, number one, it's not a thermometer. It's not designed to measure temperatures accurately. Number two, it doesn't see gases technically. If you want to see gases and actual vapor clouds, you need to look up optical gas imaging. There's a lot of argument from my friends in the scientific community because they actually pick up something on a fire service TIC. They think it's gases, but it's just an exothermic reaction of heat moving through the air. Then you have to look at the fact that it's not X-ray vision. It's being used improperly in everything from overhaul, big misuse right now as firefighters pointing at EVs or lithium-ion batteries and trying to measure a temperature on something like that, or on a propane tank or something that's very well insulated. It's measuring a surface temperature, and depending on the surface, the atmospheric attenuation, distance to the target, reflectivity of the target, your camera's not going to read it correctly. I can show you a chart where that camera's off by 1,000 degrees just on the surface measurement. So that's one of the big issues right there, is they don't know that number in the bottom right-hand corner is also contributed to 3 line of duty deaths per NFPA 1801, the 2021 standard. They took the number away because we wouldn't even read the instructions that said, do not do that, right? It's grossly misused in ARF by pointing at brakes, trying to measure brake temperatures with it. Doesn't work well doing that. You need a different type of device to do that. It is designed to see heat and give you diagnostic data. So that's the problem, is they're using it improperly. Second, they don't know how to use it correctly, such as simple things like how to carry it and that you have to carry it. 50% of the time they don't even carry it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big problem. Two, they don't turn it on until the last minute. You turn it on, it takes a full 30 seconds for it to actually warm up. One of my fatal mistakes was turning it on at the front door of a fatal house fire. It takes 30 seconds for it to warm up. If you turn on the front door and try to use it immediately, it'll freeze. It'll start clicking. It's going through something called flat field correction, right? A friend of mine sent a video in where he messed up and turned his on the front door. It takes 17 and a half seconds for the splash screen on that particular camera for the logo to go away. Well, you got a guy masking up in 6.5 seconds. 17.5 seconds is a long time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then the other aspect that's probably the most critical is they don't know how to use it in scanning for like size up, making entry, going through the fire environment, how to overcome obstacles. Like, it's not being used in size up, number one. They don't know how to recognize thermal patterns, like small white non-uniform signatures lead to big problems inside the building. They basically are looking for color all the time, which is dangerous. And then when they make entry into the building, their scan is, just put it bluntly, horrific. It's either straight ahead, it looks like a lightsaber battle, it's not complete, it doesn't scan 180 degrees. And they are also taught the way I was taught. I was taught to scan high to low. It's deadly. Because if you're looking for live fire and layout, number one, you point it up, you're going to see heat.
Mm-hmm.
But most of these cameras will dial down that lower area where you don't see it well. Seek balances it out because of mixed gain mode. That's a benefit to theirs. But if you're holding it up, even with that camera, you're only going to see 4 feet and up, or for my friends overseas, the top 3 meters of the space, right? I got to speak Celsius, Fahrenheit,
Yep. Right.
meters.
Hey,
feet.
we are international too. We're
I know
international here. I
you're
appreciate that.
you're a big deal. We got to make sure we speak all the
I don't know
languages.
about that, but
When
yeah.
you point up, you're seeing the threat, but you're not seeing the diagnostic data of the layout and where potential victims could be or probability of areas. And there's been numerous reports of firefighters scanning high first, picking up the camera, not looking, crawling right past victims. Even in my own department, my own bad story I share, we went right past one because of the way we were taught. We got TIC tunnel vision, right? And then the one of the biggest issues is firefighters say, well, the camera whited out on it. Camera whited out on me. Cameras, Aaron, haven't whited out since 2013 due to heat. If you see a white screen, you have 3 reasons you should think of. One, first, it's me. I went into a space and immediately my face piece fogged up. So they were wiping their face because of that temperature differential. They're wiping their face piece. Nobody's wiping the front of the lens of the camera. They're wiping the screen, but the front of the camera has an eye. It's a germanium window. And when it gets moisture on it, thermal imaging cameras can't see through water. So it blocks it and produces either a diminished image or no detail whatsoever. And they don't even realize sometimes the reason it's constantly fogging up is that they're in a full unidirectional flow path. Look up ULFRSI and read about unidirectional flow paths and how that kills people on a regular basis, right? So they don't recognize that. So they're not wiping the lens. They get frustrated with the camera. They put it down. And in addition to that, when they do look, they don't know what they're looking at. I can share with you dozens of videos where there's grayscale convection currents, top to bottom, ceiling to floor, that it's just a full exhaust. And this is what I got from firefighters. Didn't see any color on the camera, and it said it was 100 degrees. And all 3 on the hose line were burned. One gentleman was burned from the waist up, mass melted, said he saw nothing on the camera, and he sent me a picture of the hallway he was standing in, and the baseboard where he was standing, Aaron, was full depth alligator charring. And he saw nothing but gray. Well, there's a reason. And you need to understand when your camera shows color, what the absence of color is not the absence of heat. There's many variables in that. And if you don't do training with these things, which fire departments don't, I'd say less than probably 5% of the entire U.S. Fire Service dedicates training to it, follows NFPA 1010, 1408, and 1801. Less than 5%, because the majority of my survey in every class have had less than an hour of training, don't carry the TIC on every call, don't know the difference between high and low sensitivity in standard cameras, don't know when their camera shows color and what it doesn't mean when it's not showing color, and they were never taught to scan or given training, get this, 56% of them did not receive training in a live fire environment.
Right.
So we have a huge educational gap with a device, as you said in the beginning, that has really made huge innovations, but never underestimate an uneducated consumer to not appreciate your innovative product. Because if I throw the keys to my daughter who's about to go into driver's ed and give her no
Right.
training, that's going to be disastrous. She gets on the road. So we need to train firefighters and invest in them. If your department's not training you, that's not an excuse. As Kurt Isaacson says, the essentials manual is what you read to get the job. Okay.
Yeah.
You got to go above that. And not your department not training you is not an excuse anymore. That's just they don't pay me for it, I won't do it. That's garbage. There is free training all over our sites and everywhere now. If you just take the time to look for it instead of playing on your phone, right? Because that's what we do.
Or when you're playing on your phone, play or watch some of the videos. And it's funny because you and I kind of got rekindled. We purchased Seeks for our department. We have one in each seat, and then of course as an officer, I have I have a little bit. I have the bigger handheld.
The TAC Pro, yeah.
Yep, the TAC Pro, and then I think the 300s are what we got for each one of the riders.
Yes.
And so I reached out. I said, "Hey, you got some training videos for this, and you have a whole thing that you've done with Seek. That we'll leave access to that if that's okay, right? In the show notes.
Oh, yeah. It used to be required to have training. Now it's not. It's from the manufacturer. So the manufacturer, like Seek, partnered with me, and we produce free videos, whether you bought the camera or not, so that you can have a baseline to get started with. It doesn't replace live fire training, but it gives you a guidance on what to do.
Yeah.
So that's what I gave to you is the same thing.
And so I've been seeing a lot of you lately. Every once in a while, I actually text you a picture. I'm like, here you are again, dude. You're educated, but your videos are spot on because you talk in a manner, like I always say, you talk in a manner that I can understand. But you break down the cameras really well. You break down, like we just talked about, some of the biggest mistakes we make, which kind of gets everybody's attention. And then you kind of just say, all right, let's start with the basics. So let's go back to the basics now. So a lot of people are listening to this going, oh, shoot. All right. This is familiar. I kind of do those things. Where should we be? Obviously, we need to educate.
That's right.
With my department, we had to do all these videos. We actually did get some live fire training with them.
Good.
And so that's only the beginning though. So now, I'm thinking, all right, my crew has this as a tool. I have this as a tool. Start with the basics of what should I be using this for? I think right away I got, all right, turn that thing on right away.
Carry it, turn it on the way to call.
Yep. Yeah. So I always have a clip with me, and that's the one thing I don't necessarily know what my time frame is for when I actually turn it on. I try to turn it on in the truck when I know I'm going to use it.
That's the best answer.
Okay.
Because on the way, it gives you time to warm up, gives you time if there's an issue with it to change the battery. Seek users aside, there's certain cameras that require a tool to change the battery. Make sure that those are all within the company officer's reach, because the last thing you want is to step to the front door, have a dead battery, and no way to change it. Certain cameras have integrated batteries. Such as the FirePro 300, if it's not charged, what do you do then? So you better make sure that part of your checkout process in the morning is that the camera's charged and that it doesn't bounce around. Because whether you're using a Seek camera or not, many manufacturers allow that power button to be easily tapped, because with the gloved hand, we don't want to have to press super hard to do things. So it could be bumped and turned on inadvertently driving down the road, and then you should get on the truck later and you've got a dead battery. So you need to have it securely stored. And then when you come off the truck, it needs to be on and it needs to be set the way you want it. So for example, we teach anyone that uses a camera that has more than the TI basic mode, there's these color palettes called investigative modes, such as survey mode and your Seek FirePro 300 or TAC Pro VRS. If I already set it for that, ask yourself this, Aaron, would you want to recognize a problem early or late?
Early, right? Or
right.
Never. Or never have a problem.
Never have a problem, but that's
never
not
have
life.
a problem. Right.
So survey mode allows you to see color around 150 degrees. And as much as I strive to get firefighters to recognize non-uniform grayscale patterns under stress, I didn't recognize them when I was running around the house when people were screaming. So we need to make it easier for them to identify problems And those patterns that they can see are now colorized earlier, which tells me this is the hottest part of the structure. This is the coldest part of the structure based on what I know. Some of it can be hidden from me based on building construction. But then I take that same knowledge from my 360. And then as John Lightly, one of my instructors, says, when I do my scan inside the initial entry point, does what I see confirm or contradict what I think? Is the fire in the BC corner like I thought it was? For example, a firefighter just sent me a testimonial after we left. Within 24 hours, they had a house fire. And he said, I did my 360 with the camera. I would have never done it if it wasn't for your class. He said, I immediately recognized the fire was in the Alpha Delta corner. I didn't have any significant heat signatures anywhere else. When my guy, he was on a rescue, water can guy comes up, controls the door, opens the door. He immediately located the bedroom 2 doors to the right, went straight to the fire, boom, game over, right? That's what we want, okay, is them to locate and mitigate. I don't want them staring at the camera. I want them to quickly identify the problem and use it to confirm or contradict what they think is happening, right? But the basics start with requisite knowledge. If you read a map, and I know kids won't appreciate this, paper maps, which are hard to even find anymore, have a map on it, and they have a legend, a key, and a scale that tells you what these symbols mean. We need to train firefighters what that data means first, how it measures heat, not necessarily temperature, because that's a big misnomer. What it won't do, contraindications, big deal right there, because if you don't tell them how not to use it, they'll use it improperly. And then you need to let them practice that after they learn those things about their camera. It needs to be their camera. Don't train them on XYZ brand if they use a different one, because the sad news is they're not all the same. They're not. Just because NFPA has a standard doesn't mean all the engineers have to agree on when color shows up, when it switches, how it's designed, the buttonology of it, and how it operates. All that's different. So we have to train them on their tools. Rick Lasky says, I'll get my saw, it'll crank. Train them on their tool, right? And they better be proficient in it. And here's where the hard part comes. After you've done live fire training, how often are you going to get live fire training? Be honest.
Well, not as much as we need, right? To
Exactly.
stay fluid with this, which is why, what for me personally, like I'm really taking notes, because I want to know. All right, now we got the product. As a group, we went through. We're starting to understand a little bit of what that legend is. Like you were saying, what the cameras do, what modes we should start with them in. We're coming up with, all right, how do we, what's our policy for charging them? What's our right? So
maintenance.
Maintenance. We've come through kind of that process. We did some live fire training. And like I said, now what can I continually do? And like
It's
you
easy.
said, you have about 20 hours of videos through Seek that we have. That's one part of it, but you got to get your hands on it.
The easy part is put laminated pictures around your fire station of examples you want them to remember. A size up laminated thing stuck above the urinal, inside the stall, above the captain's office on the bulletin board, and say, this is an example of how we use the camera and size up. Remember these things. You can use it as a roll call, as a reference point. This is how we do a scan. Remember these things. Then go show them in the bay. This is how we scan. This is how we communicate. We don't stare at the camera while we're moving. We put the camera down. Make sure each firefighter, not just the company officer, knows how to do this, because odds are, Aaron, one day when you're a firefighter, you're going to be riding a seat. So you got to prepare them, right? But put examples around the station. Use them for discussion points and training, because if they're not watching these videos, the only live fire training they're going to get is your 1 or 2 times a year of actual training and the fires you go to, which is not enough. Because if they ever get in trouble, if you expect them to recognize these subtle cues and clues under stress, they're not going to do it, because they're not constantly watching it, right? So, one of my firefighters one of my guys had a Mayday, and I credit the grace of God, him being a good firefighter, and his training to recognizing what a set of stairs looked like, a very faint set of stairs in that camera that led to him and his firefighter getting out. Okay. But that's hours and hours and hours, countless hours of him training, just like you do when you said you're going to go throw ladders. So that's what's missing. Everybody studies YouTube, watches size up videos, reads smoke. If everybody was watching thermal imaging videos, my YouTube numbers would be off the charts, and they're not.
Right.
I'm not Jason Patton. The only similarity with him is I have a bald head. He has a bald head.
You kind of do. I mean, you're both bigger guys too. Like you got
He's
the buff
much
going
taller.
on, and
he's much better
and
looking.
The bald head, but yeah.
But he makes people laugh, and he has some really good videos, and he's getting a ton of views, right? And my daughter said it best. She came to me when she was 13. Said, "Dad, we need to have a talk." I was like, "Uh-oh, is it boys?" She goes, "No, it's much worse. It's your YouTube channel. It sucks."
Leave it to 6 to teenagers, right? That's awesome.
So my business manager, my teenager, informed me of how YouTube, how you monetize, how you get people, all that. So we had 1,000 subscribers at the time. Now we have like 17,000 subscribers, which I accredit that to my family correcting me, right? But firefighters would be watching these more, but it's not, just be blatantly, brutally honest. Thermal imaging is not the number one priority. It's not sexy. It's not the fun thing. Fire behavior will save your life, but it's not the number one class people sign up for, right? They sign up for search, hose, fire attack, leadership. If you look statistically, that's the classes all the fire departments are looking for. They're not focusing on their weak points. They're not. No. They're focusing on what get people to show up.
Well, and that's why you and I were in the same corners, because I was fitness across the hall from the TIC guy, because they're two things that can save your life, probably more than any of the other things. But again, they're tools. We're tools too. I mean, we've been around long enough. We know that, right?
I'm an old worn out wrench.
Yeah. Well, you and I together, but we're still useful. And, speaking of useful, let's talk about this. This is a tool we talked about before. So I'm already taking some notes on things that I can get better at and continually hit with. Let's keep going with, all right, what are the basic things you want everybody to know about this? So let's say Seek is on every rig in my fire department. They are in a lot of other ones. What do you want people to know about these? Let's start with the basics. You talk about scanning. Most people scan improperly. Take me through when we're done with this, give me enough tools, to that I know, first of all, I know I need to continually work at it and educate myself. But, let's go back to the one-on-ones on these.
All right. Well, if I make an entry to a building, first of all, I've hopefully done my size up, set everything up for success. If your crew already has a camera, they could go ahead, scan the door, force the door, do their live fire layout and all that without you before you get there. However, if you're coming up the door, here's some things I'd tell you to do. One, firefighters don't scan their entry point. They don't look at the door with the camera. They look at it with their eyes. They don't look at the camera. Whether you have a new home or an older home, I live in an older home, you and I have the exact same cheap rubber gasket around our door. Yeah. That gasket will burn away before that 2-inch door does. And when it does, you will see faint heat signatures that look like little wispy patterns coming around the top half. You'll see it around windows, see it around doors. That means there's heat behind that door. So before you open it, you should have everything on, right? Mask on, gloves on, line charged.
Yep. And your camera on 30 seconds, right?
Camera's so on before I came off the truck, hopefully. Yep. And then when I open it, one of the things that firefighters don't do is they charge into the space. Your first scan, Aaron, is your best scan, because if you're at that doorway, you have a low air track that allows you to get low and look and take advantage of being just inside that door, not charge down the hallway and then try to figure it out in zero viz. So break the plane of the door, stay low, right? Sweep and call out without the camera first, because Firefighter Rescue Survey points out 12% of victims are found roughly within 6 feet of an egress point. So you'd hate to pick up the camera and then a victim be to your right or left and you just crawl right past them, which, by the way, has happened. People just don't talk about it, right? So I do my basics and I look to see what I can see. And then while I'm down there, pick up the darn camera while you're there, because you're in that beautifully low, clear area. If you've got it, wipe the lens and start. Don't look towards where you think the fire is, because every firefighter I've seen do this, if they look at the fire, they never rotate their body 180 degrees. They stay focused on the fire. Rotate your body from wall to wall, 180 degrees, scanning. And if your camera freezes, you stop. Where I see firefighters, they do this, like they're punching somebody.
Yep.
Your camera's not going to keep up, neither are you. So 180 degrees, slow and smooth, right? My camera freezes, I stop. If it fogs up, wipe the lens. A lot of people, I'm not taking that much time. Oh, really? So if I take 8 seconds, let's just say hypothetically, at the front door, and it now has told me where the fire is, so I don't have trouble finding the fire, where the bedrooms are, which is where 45% of all victims are found per firefighter rescue survey, and my camera fails at that point, is that 8-second investment worth saving you minutes of stumbling around in the dark? And you hear this on the radio, we're having trouble finding a fire. No joke you are. You're driving on the interstate with your headlights off. You expect to be efficient. We're asking them to do that 360 and initial scan to help them establish their benchmarks for line placement and search right off the bat. Whether they use it after that or not, I'm going to be happy with those first 2 steps. I would prefer they keep using it, but I don't want them to use it as a crutch either. So once they've done that, they have to communicate that information to their firefighters. And here's where it gets muddy. People want to talk and not work. As my wife says, land a plane. We develop a simple, concise model. Look up the talent code. He talks about the power of 3-word phrases.
Yep.
Right? How often do we use 3-word phrases? A lot. Life, fire, layout. We say victim 3 times. Life, incident, property. ICS. All kind of things we use are 3-word phrases. So we say TED, type of room, egress points, and directions. I tell them what they need to know. I don't give them a dissertation on the room layout like it's a Amish wood oak table with, a beautiful great room and stainless steel countertops. They don't care. Where do I need them to go, right? The direction, and what are pertinent things they need to know? Like bedroom right down the hall, first door on the right, whatever it is. If it's quick, bedroom right, follow me, or whatever you're going to do. And when you get to that room, if they bust in there, you go crib right. You want to go left and miss the crib, right? Or high chair. No, 3 high chairs at the table. Baby in the high chair. Big deal, right?
Yeah, right.
Or kitchen. 3 high chairs and a wheelchair. We are looking for who? If we have 3 high chairs and a wheelchair, we're looking for non-ambulatory people.
People, right?
Yeah. So give them pertinent information, the direction they need to go, and the company officer should be always looking for egress points or ventilation points. So if I came in A side door 1, right front door, and I'm going in the first bedroom, I should shut the door behind me or them. I should identify and locate a window and use the UL search study and say, now the door is isolated. They can search the room. They find a victim. We can take them straight out that window. Windows look differently through thermal imaging cameras. So if we can scan and interpret that information correctly, 1, that helps us shrink the target. 2, we got to also find the fire. Your finding the fire should be your priority, because if you don't control the fire and you try to keep searching without putting out the fire, you're going to become fuel, as my father says. So remember this, the next fire you go to, Aaron. Convection tells you direction. If I look down the hallway and convection currents is coming down the hallway on the 3rd door on the left, the fire is that way, right? If I'm getting a ton of convection and you're on a nozzle and you flow a bunch of water for 20 seconds or so, not 2 or 3 seconds, and you shut it down and it comes back down that hallway faster than you can move, you have a significant fire, and that's a flow and move fire. You flow down that same hallway and very little convection comes back, you can hit and move or walk down that hallway and throat punch that thing and put it out unless it's remote, way remote from you. So convection can tell you direction, colorization can provide information or hide it. So if I don't have convection and I see heat around a door, heat through a wall, because drywall will show heat, right? I can find the fire, as Joe DeVito says, I can follow the yellow brick road, black, gray, white, yellow, orange, red, depending on my camera, and find it. So that's where if we're trained in our camera, we can read that heat and use the proper application mode to find the problem faster and not over rely on it. Because when I'm working, the camera should be down. Okay. Yeah. And when they're moving, the camera should be down. The only time we teach to scan is at entry points. Enter this room, scan, give them the information, move. Get to the next entry point to another room, scan, move. Because would you cross the street without looking both ways?
Right.
No. Yeah. But we send them in all the time blind and expect them to be efficient. And the military thinks we're crazy for doing that. They attack a target with every piece of data they have, and then they're using every bit of technology to take out the bad guy. And I see all the time on Facebook, scanning takes too much time. You're going to run into the bedroom or run into the bed anyway. Sure you are. What else are you going to run into? Is every house laid out the same? Is every bedroom small? No, there's too many variables. Give them data and get out of their way and let them do their job, and put the camera down, control the flow path, control the fire, do your job, but just use it to, hey, it's that way. Hey, the bedroom's this way. Hey, conditions are getting worse. Hey, here's an egress point. That's what it should be used for.
Yeah.
Like, I don't stare at my phone when I'm driving. I listen to it if it's telling me where to go, but sometimes the phone is wrong, and so can the camera, right?
Yeah, right.
And so make sure you have enough sense to know that's telling me it's not hot down that hallway, and I'm feeling heat. So I'm gonna trust my gut. So
Yeah.
that's a summation of making entry and locating your two primary objectives of fire attack and search. I hope that makes sense.
The FireStore, equipping protectors with passion. Every decision we make as a company is about you, our customer. We wouldn't be where we are today without you, and we don't take that lightly. We understand that having the right gear can mean the difference between life and death. Our goal is to get you the gear you need, when you need it, at prices you can afford. Visit us at TheFireStore.com for everything but the truck. Now let's get back to the show.
Yeah, I like the fact that, like, you're saying, hey, we open anytime we get into almost like a new atmosphere or potential new atmosphere, right? Any room, because by isolating it, we're changing that atmosphere a little bit because we can control flow path. But open that door, get your scan, and like take the extra 6 to 8 seconds to do it, because now I'm knowing the layout. Now I know I'm where I need to go. If I'm doing search, I can find out so much more information. So it makes my search more efficient and effective. Same thing with locating the fire. And you had mentioned too, getting used to doing, and I see you scan the same way every time, even you demo it. Do you always go right to left, or like, do you tell people just do it the same way? So it's
There's a lot of research says right to left because that's the way your brain reads.
Yeah.
I honestly let the firefighter pick, because I'm going to tell them one thing, they're going to do the other. But my scan is based on where I think the fire is. I start opposite of that because my brain is ADHD, hyper focused, go to the problem. And the times I have looked directly at the problem and not looked at the rest of the environment, I have missed a very big cue that led to problems, such as why we teach scanning low to high, because firefighters who look up and see fire, whether scanning outside or in the building, typically, statistically, don't look down. And it gets them in a lot of trouble. A friend of mine, Robert Foreman, says, always be concerned with the lowest level of fire. Fire above you will hurt you. Fire below you will kill you. Yeah, and it does every year. People say, well, not that many firefighters are dying. Well, 10 or 15 are every year, and they're dying the exact same way, which is the definition of insanity. And we're not improving it. We're just banking on our numbers are low. Well, that's not low numbers if our fireground deaths are low and we're only going to so many fires. That's not low numbers. That's pretty high incidence. So
the percentage is actually going higher then in that case, right? Like, and when we have this technology available, we have the training available now more than ever because of the internet and, like you were saying, videos that we have, and we just need to continually, stay up on it, and you got to refine your skills every single day. Like that's the whole purpose of this, which is why I'm hoping a lot of people are listening to this going, oh shoot, man, I need to go back to school on this TIC, and really, hopefully if they're listening to this in the firehouse, they're going to grab their TICs and they're having this conversation, which should happen very often. You had also said using using the TIC on the 360 outside the building, right?
Huge.
So let's talk about that. As an officer, I'm doing my 360. My guys are setting up now. They have their personal one too, so they can get an idea of that doorway.
Yeah, that's huge. They can go to the door and get started while you're doing your 360. That's redefining the word efficient right there.
Yes, and understanding that, because and I'm going back to the basics. They turned it on. First of all, they checked it. They knew that it was powered up right. It had enough battery charge. It was stored properly, so they know it didn't just turn on and inadvertently. We're going to a fire. They're turning it on. They have it. That's the other thing, right? It's connected to it, and
connected to them securely too. I get rid of any carabiner that's a squeeze. Put a twist lock on it, because if it's just a squeeze one, it'll fall off. You'll lose.
Yeah, and I think Seek has they have some lanyards that they sell with it that we're getting that attach to our SCBAs. And
Mhm.
so I'm now, as the officer, I'm going on my 360 and I have my seek in hand. And so take me through my basics there. What do I need to do and know?
First of all, look at the building with your training before technology. Hopefully, you got a windshield view of the structure when you pull it up, right?
Yep.
What
Three
have I
sides
got?
typically when we try
Yeah,
to, when we're coming
try
up.
to, right? Sometimes you can't because you got row houses or whatever, but bottom line, always try to get more views of the structure. So look at it with your training, time of day, cars in the yard, all the signs and stuff that we're supposed to look for. Read the building. Is it lightweight construction? Is it old construction, legacy? And then here, add something to your size up that most people don't because you're using a camera. Is this building well cared for or not well cared for?
Mm-hmm.
Because if it isn't well cared for and it's older and has things like single pane windows in it, odds of you seeing heat signatures through that building are pretty high, especially when you start talking about mobile homes, metal buildings, older houses built in the 1800s with single pane glass that haven't been cared for versus homes that are newer that are well insulated. The better something's insulated, the less your chances of seeing heat signatures. But to give you a little nugget, if I'm a building inspector using a camera, all I need is roughly a 20-degree delta or temperature difference from the inside of the building to the outside to find a problem in your home. And that's when it's not on fire. So if your building's on fire, would you agree with me? Number one, it's going to be a hotter than 20 degrees difference from the inside to the outside. So
Unless
our
you're in
first,
Arizona, I think. But,
yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
kidding.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
could be.
Yeah.
Texas, Arizona, all them, they win. I
Yeah.
don't do fire training there in the summer. But you have to look at the building first for what it is, the circumstances, the variables, your conditions that you have, what actions you're going to take. And then when you start doing your size up, stop and look at each division with your eyes and then scan low to high. If you have a pistol grip camera like your Attack Pro and you're dealing with a tall building, you can turn it sideways. You'll see floor to ceiling or top of the building or to the bottom to top in almost one shot. You have to be standing straight in line with the target if you want to see an accurate picture. Infrared energy travels in straight lines. If you're at an angle, you may see a heat signature, but you may not see the whole thing. It may not colorize. It may not show the pattern well. It has to strike that detector on those pixels to give you an accurate picture. I use the word accurate in air quotes. Let's say that.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking, think of your building as a big block of Swiss cheese. They call it a building envelope. Anywhere they poked a hole in that building, they had to go back if it was not designed to ventilate out of those holes, and they seal it. What do they seal it with? Rubber gaskets, caulk, spray foam, things that are extremely flammable that fail very easily under fire conditions. You are now looking for what we call non-uniform patterns or heat signatures that engineers call thermal bridging. To put it in firefighters' perspective, we're looking for patterns that shouldn't be there. Like, hey, there is a weird white wispy pattern around this door and there's no other heat signatures anywhere else. What's behind that door? Probably heat somewhere.
Yeah.
What around the top half of a window? If it's single pane glass, I'll see infrared energy through it. Double pane, triple pane, I won't that easily, but I will see energy around the window frame, the frame itself, those things. I look at vents, crawl space vents. I look at dryer vents. Anywhere they poked a hole in the structure for areas of heat transfer to take you back. Remember the first Home Alone when he grabbed the doorknob and it burned him? The doorknob's metal on both sides. Metal is a terrible insulator. If you don't believe me, be the rookie on spaghetti night, hold the stainless steel bowl when they pour the sauce in it, and hang on to it for a little bit.
Yeah.
You'll put it
Right.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boom. Instant. I learned a lesson. So if the building has parts of it that transfer heat really fast or gaps or weaknesses in the envelope, I'm looking at those and I'm turning that weakness into a strength and identify the hottest part of the building and the coldest part of the building for fire direction, spread, travel, and areas that people could be, because we've been telling them for years, close the door,
Yeah.
we'll come get you. You could have 70, 80%, even 90% involvement of a building, and you could find one room that's dark where two elderly people are trapped because the husband refused to leave his bedridden wife, right? And you could easily take that window and hopefully rescue those two people and let the building go, right? The objective is a defining where the fire is, where it's been, where it's going. My tactical objectives of, hey, it's already in the attic, it's in the basement. You know how many times basement fires are missed? A bunch.
Yeah.
I hear it all the time when I show videos. How'd they miss that? The social media critics. Well, maybe there was no signs of a basement. Maybe it was a root cellar or completely concrete encased with no windows. Maybe they didn't scan low and didn't recognize those non-uniform patterns. Why did the white pattern all the way around the bottom of the building light up, but nowhere else, and smoke's pushing out the upper parts of the building?
Right.
Size up is the most critical area that's talked about in NIOSH reports, where it's incomplete or inadequate. Now, if I
Yeah.
add a camera to it, instead of reading just the building to smoke, now, Aaron, I am reading heat signatures that my eye cannot see. And now I know things about that building that I didn't know before. I've even got pictures of stairs through the wall in a Type 5 building showing me where the stairs and the infrastructure is.
Yeah.
So it's all about picking it up and looking.
And you're right about the basement fires. We have balloon frame construction a lot in certain areas, right? So that's just knowing your territory, knowing what I'm looking for. And so you're saying in those balloon frames, it might be pushing through the ceiling or through the attic up on the roof.
And
But
it'd
if
be in
I'm
the
going around that home, I should see some of those signatures around even these small little windows, right? I
Could
should
be,
see
or
some.
you could see the joist running top to bottom and see a heat signature between those joists where that's acting like a chimney where
Right.
the
So
heat's
then you
running up
can locate where it is in that attic space, so you
and
know,
where it's going.
and where it in some cases where it is. But I
Mhm.
also like the fact that now I'm finding some areas where, all right, if this is a bedroom in the back, in the CD corner,
Mhm.
I know this is possibly where we can do a vent enter isolate search, because they're probably already isolated if the temperature is different, right? Like
That's right. And
it,
it could be different reasons. It could be isolated, or you could have a room that is very well insulated. You can see the same thing on a Draeger or a shipping container prop that's built well. It'll have a separate burn box inside of it with an air gap. And you'll look at that burn box and you'll see heat all over the place. But where the fire is, you won't see heat because they have that air gap for insulation. Always consider the context of the building. What is it hiding from you? Expect it to be hiding something from you. Don't be surprised. Do your 360 and do your initial look and put those two pictures together. Now you have a 30 to 60-second pre-plan and go to work, because now I know where it is. I know where my search should start or go. And I can also check conditions. Is my suppression efforts working? Is the search crew, when they look back, if they got convection currents coming in at them, then they don't have water on the fire, right?
right,
They know
right.
to isolate and get behind doors. People think we're trying to tell people to become videographers or filmmakers with this. We're not.
No,
We're teaching them to take their fundamental skills and use this as a force multiplier, as my friend David Hinojosa says, and use it as you need it in each space and take care of that environment so you can get to your objective and get out. That's what we're teaching people to do, to be what we call intelligently aggressive. And products like Seek have something called mixed gain mode that allow
yeah,
each pixel to operate faster, so your firefighters don't have to wait on delays. And for you, for search purposes, it allows you to see the cooler areas and the hotter areas in the same image without a loss of detail. That's where they've changed the game when it comes to firefighting, because now it's simpler. It's the easiest one to teach. And I don't have to look for icons. I just simply scan and interpret. So that's how they have changed the game. And your little Fire Pro 300 is what I consider the ultimate situational awareness camera, because we built that with Seek Thermal, and I had my fingers on it for one reason. They had all the hard part. I had one thing I wanted on it. I wanted firefighters to be able to use it and get home.
yeah.
And that's the purpose of that. And Dr. Bill Parrish is the guy behind it. Look him up. He's not a newcomer to infrared. He built the Patriot missile sensor, if that tells you where he's at.
Yeah.
He's been around a while.
Like you
So
and I, we, Patriot, for younger generation, you'll have to Google that one too.
yeah, the
It's
technology
old.
proves,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. But
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
proven technology, because it made a whole war situation a lot easier for us.
Yeah.
Um, but and you had mentioned that the 300s and the basics of that, like to give a
Mhm,
situation awareness, just I think it's perfect to kind of go. We went. How do you survey? Once you enter the building, right outside
mhm,
of the building, and now
mhm,
we're putting this technology in our individual firefighters. Give me just a couple of good points for them to remember. We already talked about the power. We talked about making
mhm,
checking your that
mhm,
how it's stored and continually educating. But if I'm a firefighter now and I have this new technology or this right
mhm.
here, basics 101, things to remember.
First of all, the Fire Pro 300 is different than every other situation awareness camera because it's not 9 hertz, it's 25 hertz. It's faster, and it has the same engine in it as your decision making camera does, your Attack Pro. So your firefighter seeing what you're seeing. The difference in the
Okay.
two cameras is one subtle difference. The Fire Pro 300 is not as insulated as your Attack Pro. Your Attack Pro is a tank. I tried to destroy that camera in testing. It is very durable. FirePro 300, your guys can break that if they're not. Okay, so they need to secure it. They need to know that it will help them do two things exceptionally well: object identification and hazard identification. If I was going to retrain the whole fire service, I'd train them on those two things first. What do door frames look like? What do hose lines look like? What do floor registers or vents above or below a window look like? What does a window look like? How about a panic bar on a commercial building? You know, those are made of metal, right?
Yeah.
Metal stands out on a thermal imaging camera because it thinks it's a different temperature because of a fancy word called emissivity. So shiny surfaces throw the camera off in one way, but also stick out like a sore thumb. If you're wearing an MSA air pack, I can look down the hallway and say, Aaron's wearing an MSA G1 because you have a metal band that holds your cylinder in place. And I can say, that's MSA, that's Scott. I can use those concepts, object identification, to regain orientation, to locate my crew, find a hose line, find my way out, find potential victims, all kind of different things. Types of floor, that's a wood floor, that's a tile floor, what I came in. That's how good the detail is. Hazard identification, convection currents. Where are they going? How high are they? How low are they? Where's the thermal layer at? It shows color earlier than any other device, which gets firefighters' attention, right? So I see the grayscale convection currents moving. I know that's hot. I know the fire's down the hallway. Here's what they didn't teach me. I can follow those convection currents in reverse because they are going from high pressure to low pressure, hot to cold, towards an opening in most cases, which leads me out of the building. I can do the same thing with a flashlight too if I read smoke with it, if I got in trouble.
Right.
So to use the device to help you regain orientation, or if you're doing a task, which most of those people are carrying there, should be on a hose or searching. I don't want them picking that camera up unless they need it. They should have a boss, company officer, designated adult helping them do that, because that's technically, if you're the captain, that's your job. They should be searching and only pick up the camera if they're in trouble or they're splitting crews, things of that nature. But it can also be used when you do all these false alarms, all these odors of electricals. You can put it in survey mode and you can have 4 people or 3 people looking for the problem instead of 1, because it's going to colorize earlier at 65 degrees Celsius or 150 degrees Fahrenheit. You can also use it in overhaul a lot easier than most cameras. You can also use it in size up. Even though it's a situational awareness camera, it does have a decision-making core. You just have to make sure they know how to use it, train your firefighters. And then that camera is also easier to wipe the lens than their predecessor, the old FirePro X. You couldn't even get your finger down in there. So now you can wipe that lens and go to work, right? So make sure that you teach them the basics of what things look like through their camera. And then if you train them on that, set up rooms like a house and a building and just smoke it up and teach them to locate and identify objects. That's a refrigerator. That's a door frame. You know, that's a set of stairs. The more you can do that with them, the less time they're going to spend staring at that camera. They'll go, I know what that is. Boom, right to it, right?
Yeah.
Simple, easy, efficient.
And you're not, this isn't replacing reading everything else around you. This is just an additional thing to add to their data set, which is right. Like you're already reading environment, this, you know, even when you're walking up, smells, sounds, all the different senses. This is just that tool that's going to add that extra data set to your decision making. And I like that right away. You just said, hey, Zam, this isn't replacing, you know, getting your 3-side look. This isn't replacing anything. It's just an additional tool, and we have to use it properly. And Seek's technology is helping us do that because they're dummy proofing it, is really what you're saying. They're just making it a lot easier and more user friendly for us, which we know
it's not fireman proof, but it's close.
It's close. And you know, and that's why I've been a real you know, fan and believer of it. And you know, and I appreciate all your insights, by the way, because like I said, you've given us some usable, tangible, actual things that everybody should be talking about with their crews. You know, even right now, someone saying, "Oh shoot, I got to remember to turn this thing on." 30 seconds can save somebody's life, right?
Yeah.
Like those small details can really add up to that one call, right? We train for the Super Bowl, right? You think about it. You know, we get one moment possibly in our careers where all of this knowledge comes together to save a life or 2 or 3, you know, or our own. And that's why it's so imperative that we continually focus on it. You know, and I mentioned you have videos, you are continually learning, you're continually kind of pushing your own limits of knowledge, right?
I'm in school all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what you've also taught us is don't stop learning about these. Continually review what the keys are, what, like what your particular piece of equipment can and can't do and when it should be
Mhm.
used. With that, are you going to be at FDIC? Will you
I will
be?
be at FDIC.
Okay.
My company will be there early filming for fire engineering training minutes. And then after that, instructor Thomas Anderson, one of my lead instructors, has a hot class on Monday and Tuesday. My entire cadre, for the most part, will be there with some international special guests Monday and Tuesday. That's a sold out class, teaching 2 hot classes a day. Then I move over to Lucas Oil Stadium, the exterior booths they have right outside
Yep.
there. I will be at the Seek Thermal booth. Just look for my big van there. We will be doing thermal imaging demonstrations with the Max Firebox with them. I'll be there from Thursday through Saturday.
And you'll be outside,
I'll
right?
be
Doing those.
outside.
Okay.
They have an inside booth, but if you want to see the TICs at work, you can come see them outside. Joe DeVito's teaching a general conference class on thermal imaging.
Joey D. Yeah.
Thomas Anderson's teaching a class on thermal imaging general conference. My friend Scott Herbert's going to be outside with that big lion container showing off some stuff in thermal imaging. There's lots of opportunities this year if you go to FDIC, even if you're not taking a hot class, to go learn about TICs and talk to people who use them. Don't just talk to me. Go talk to the people. Check out these things. There's several booths. There's going to be stuff going on.
The FireStore has some,
FireStore.
does a lot with Seek, and they have a really great relationship. So you can go to the FireStore booth as well. And I think they're sponsoring some of this. I'll be there. I'll be at the FireStore booth. I'm going to find you at the Seek booth. Hopefully we can do a little extra video and you can actually do some more one-on-one training with me.
We'll be there
because I'm going to need the refreshing. Again, FDIC is a great opportunity. The videos are a great opportunity. But you have to go out and utilize it. You have to go out and practice. You have to continually strive to get better with these. I saw these probably, I think 10 years ago when they started to come out with the what you call them, the situational awareness cameras. And I'm
That's
like,
correct. Yep.
No way is that going to ever happen. And here we are 10 years later. I got them on my rigs and teaching my guys, and we're loving the education, man. And I'm so glad we got an opportunity. I could talk another 3 hours with you. I know you're big time, and now you got webinars, you got another couple things to do. But before I wrap up, I got to ask you the main question. You've given us a lot of information to make us better. And I know a lot of people are listening to this going, okay, I got a lot of things I can learn about these TICs. I need to get back to work. I need to go check out the Seeks through the FireStore at TheFireStore.com. I need to go maybe look up some more of Andy Starnes at FDIC. Right. There's so many things that we've given people to get better. I got to go back to the question though, brother. What are you personally doing to get better?
Well, first of all, my personal mission is to get better at my faith and my family first. And that's where I fail the most, is not putting enough time there. If we're honest, we put more time in our career than we do into our family. So one of the things my wife and I do is constant balance discussions about when I'm gone too much and how to balance that out and to spend time with my daughter and them without this thing owning my life. Right. So that's the first thing to get better. And that involves reading, podcasts, mentorship, accountability groups, which I have, and I highly recommend you have one of those. Second of all, if you're want to get better at your calling, your career, the things you feel led to do, then for me, what I'm doing, I stay in my wheelhouse. I focus on 2 areas: behavioral health, and I focus on thermal imaging. My motto is I work in the dark. I just submitted an application for my behavioral health company to become a nonprofit. So we're working on that. So I'm learning about that journey.
Yeah.
My company has 11 members in it, and we do international work. So I'm constantly having to read. I go to school through a company called Infraspection. I used to do Infrared Training Center. I transitioned to Infraspection. Infraspection has some interesting resources, and they also have standards that I've been studying. All my guys have to be level 1 thermography certified. I'm going through some other certifications this year outside of what I've had before. In addition to that, I do a lot of reading. Therefore, I was reading 100 pages a day. So for me, I'm reading a minimum of 20, 30 pages a day. And then I have to spend time reinvesting in myself. And I work with young people. So I have to exercise, or I can't go do the things we're talking about, because I'll be 50 years old this year. And, we have to stay where we can move. And I have a 15-year-old daughter who wants to move, and my wife wants to go for walks and all the things that you should do. So you have to take care of yourself, and investing in yourself as a firefighter also pays off in your family if you're taking care of your mind, body, spirit, all of those things. But you've got to make time to do that. And that's a battle. I'm just telling you, it's a battle. But if you don't get up early or you don't make time for it, you won't do it. And if you don't make time for you now, you won't have it you later. And if you're going to be in this, you've got to constantly learn. You don't have to be an expert at everything, but find the niche, the thing that interests you the most, and focus on it. That's where God may have called you to be.
Mm-hmm.
Your calling is fitness, and you've helped tremendously thousands and thousands of people with that. I've met people who mention how much you've helped them. That is our dividends, right? Is when we see those change lives in others or save lives. So for me, my goal is to continually reinvest in this and learn and make this easier. And you're going to see more free content from us than you've ever seen before, because the more I give away, the more I receive.
Yeah.
And
Amen.
not the way you think. So that's how we work.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you, brother. I mean, you've been paying it forward every single day, and very well said. And you're one of the true gems of the fire service, man. I love you. I always look forward to talking to you because I always walk away motivated and about making myself better. So thank you for that inspiration, and keep doing what you're doing, brother. And I can't wait to see you out at FDIC. Thanks for all this knowledge, by the way. So for our listeners, if you're just listening to this, you should come over to our YouTube channel where we're trying to jazz it up too, like Andy Starnes is trying to do with his.
That's right.
But you can see us on our YouTube channel. You can also go to the Better Every Shift podcast page on firerescue1.com. We'd love to have you email us at bettereveryshift@firerescue1.com. I get those emails. I try to I respond to all of them. Have had some great connections, and if you have questions for Andy, I can forward them on to him. We can also, hopefully bring him back to really continually dig into, maybe the science side of this. But I just want to thank Andy for your time. Thank you to the FireStore for sponsoring us all these years, and to Seek Thermal. I think you should check them out at FDIC and go online. We'll leave some links where you can start to really improve your education and start that knowledge and keep that knowledge going. Again, brother, thank you so much for being here. Love all the information. I look forward to seeing you soon. Like I said, you're one of the true gems, and you're passing it and playing it forward for the rest of us in the fire service, because you understand, just like what we do here on the podcast, and understand that it's about learning something, it's about doing something, and sharing something to make you and those around you better every shift. Thanks for listening, everybody.